Welcome to Failure Upcycled. This is Dr. Vicki Stieha.
And this is Dr. Kimberly Henderson from Boise State University.
In this podcast, we hear Syndney's story of her struggle with a temporary setback in her pursuit of excellence with her horse.
We look at Syndney's experience and focus on understanding memory, being present, paying attention, and the pros and cons of habit.
Hello, Professor Henderson. This is Syndney. I was just going to give you a story about a time I failed. So I ride horses. I show horses competitively. It's pretty cool. Lots of sparkles and lots of horses, obviously. And there's an event called showmanship where you do a series of maneuvers on the ground with the horse in a lead rope in your hand. And my horse and I are pretty good at showmanship, and I've never forgot a pattern in my life. And this year we were trying to qualify. My horse is a paint horse. We were trying to qualify for the Paint World Show, and there's only a limited number of shows throughout the year that you can use to qualify for that world show. So we were at the third one out of 4 this season, and it was pretty pivotal that I did well at this show in order to qualify for World. And so my horse and I were on point, right? We were doing so great. We were just perfect in the practice pen. Everything was beautiful. My horse's name is Simone. Simone had never looked better, really. It was absolutely fabulous. We were so excited. It was minutes before we were going into the pen. And we get in there, and I start to do my pattern, and you're all alone in the ring with a series of, there were 10 judges at this show, so 10 people, not to mention all of the people from around the country. They're watching you. So I was in it, and everybody else had done their pattern before me. I was doing my pattern, and I'm in there, and I'm just, it's going so well, absolutely fabulous. I can tell my horse is doing it just perfectly. And then I get through the pattern, and I'm feeling really good about it. And I look up at my trainer and my mom and the rest of my equestrian team, and they're just shaking their heads and laughing, and they just all turned away and walked off. And I was like, what? Like, what just happened? And I realized that at the very end of the pattern, I had forgot to do a critical element that my horse would have done perfectly. It was a big stop and a turn, and she does those. Those are her best elements. And I completely, for whatever reason, just totally failed hardcore and forgot to do it whatsoever. And here I was thinking that I had just done this winning world show quality pattern, and lo and behold, nope, I had failed, completely messed it up, didn't place at all, and ended up not doing well at that show even a little bit. As my mindset, that was the first event we had that weekend. In the end, we went to the other show, and we did really well, and we ended up qualifying for the world show.
So that was Syndney's.
Yeah.
What did she say?
Syndney was on point with her horse, Simone.
Simone. I know.
I like that name.
I wrote down the horse's name too, and I was like 10 judges plus everybody that cares about horses on this circuit. I mean,
right.
Like, talk about pressure.
Yeah, I could almost I wrote down 20 eyes.
20 eyes trained on her. Recording everything she's doing and judging it microscopically.
Right.
What do we have in our lives like that?
Well, sometimes when we teach, there's some people, not everybody. But I mean, I think all of us have times in our lives where, whether it's true or we just feel like it, all eyes are on us.
Definitely.
So what happens to her?
Failure at this juncture has consequences.
Yeah.
It always has consequences, but she had to go to another show and present and perform in order to qualify for the world show. So she was still able to get where she wanted to go, but that's tough.
She had to take another detour.
Yeah.
She had to go extra miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the failure is I had this plan to get there. I had everything patterned out, and I had a blip.
Yeah. Well, she had a blip, and she had a blip because she forgot. You know, that was the thing that I cued in on, was that she'd forgot a critical element.
Well, and I think what was really interesting is that she talks about this pattern that she does all the time. So she's sort of in some ways going by rote. Right? She was going through the motions. She is so well practiced. It should just come out. It should just happen fluidly. She didn't even realize she passed it without doing it until she looked up at the people who know her routine and know it was missing.
Yeah.
And know the required, the compulsory moves, right?
Yep.
So this makes me think sometimes about how we have that part of our mind saves us a lot of energy, right? Because I don't have to think, I'm just going to go through it. And, but then, it deceives us, right?
Yeah.
Something, a piece drops out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about, we were talking earlier about that little quote about moving through life with purpose and not just momentum. Mm-hmm. And that came to my mind as I was listening to her.
Do you want me to give you the quote again?
Yeah, you can give me the quote, sure.
It's you. That's my favorite part, is that you're like, I said that? Oh, that was good. Moving forward with purpose, not momentum.
Right. So did she lose the focus on her purpose? Was she in momentum there at that moment?
So when you were talking about, there are things that require more or less energy. I mean, we're talking about implicit versus explicit memory.
Sure.
Right? And so explicit memory is those declarative pieces. Mm-hmm. Knowing what? It's the memory of facts and events. Implicit memory is the procedural stuff, right? Implicit memory are what athletes, performers, and in this case, Syndney have in mass. It's just sort of this procedural, this already known thing, right? I don't have to really think about what I'm doing. I mean, think about using your coffee maker in the morning, right? When you first start it, it's something that you really have to be intentional with, and it takes some time to figure it out. But then once you figure it out, it's like boom, 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 done.
Yeah. So
you've got that all.
We talk about muscle memory.
Yeah, muscle memory.
And that's connected to implicit memory in some ways. What do you think?
Is procedural connected? I don't know.
Right. So the implicit, the order of events as she's going through a routine is I do this, then I do this, then I do this, and then there's a muscle memory that goes with it. Right? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking is that... So I have this muscle memory that works in tandem that maybe I go to take the step because I am just patterned to take the step, and then that triggers the implicit memory, yes, and then I will walk 4 more steps and take a turn or whatever it is that I do.
I'm pulling the lead to the left or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to bring those two things together, and I want to talk about what I have come to understand as one of your favorite things is habit, and about how habits start, right?
Right.
How they break, and when they work for us and when they don't work for us, and things like that. And I don't know if because for me, bringing those two things together, muscle memory with the implicit memory with, the procedural level of knowledge is just a lot about habit. It's something that you do continuously until it becomes a pattern of, stimulus and responses that you don't really have to think about so much.
Well, and performance is a type of habit.
Definitely.
Right? But then there's this level, a layer that has to happen on top of habit that is where perfection comes from. Because I think we can have habit without that level of perfection.
So I would say a habit is a conduit for the perfection.
Yes.
Right?
I would agree.
It's the catalyst, or the
I like the catalyst.
The catalyst for perfection.
Yeah. The habit takes care of the fundamental, the going through, right? I have this habit. I know how to move with my horse. My horse and I have habituated this performance that we do together.
Okay, explain habituated.
Habituated.
Remember, this is our cue for student moment.
Right. It's the process of creating a habit.
Okay.
So we are habituated. It's a form of the word. I'm sure there's probably a more nuanced definition.
Yeah. Do you want me to Google? Make or become accustomed or used to something.
Yeah. So Syndney, with her horse, are habituated to going through this practice.
Got it.
This custom of going through this routine. And so I see that as that sort of fundamental or foundational level of performance. And then on top of that is what's required for the level of performance that you need to get to worlds. And maybe, just maybe, the failure in this case is that Syndney was so focused on that top level, the flair, the style that differentiates her from the other competitors, that the need to focus on that forced the bottom to fall out on some of the habituated movement, right? Some of the habit.
Okay.
Right?
Almost like it became a distractor.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So how do we keep that from happening, right? Even when we become so practiced in something. So one of the things that I know in training, like athletic training, they say it's great, right? Great, you have a standard set of movements that, from what I understand in training, it's really important to, once you develop a routine that you work on that routine, but you always work in variations. Right? You work in variations. So it becomes, that implicit, that procedural piece, so that when you go back to it, I don't know, it has to stay a little bit fresher, right? It stays.
Right. So you have a lot of networks that help you get through the what ifs.
Yeah.
I'm going to loop that back to my hypothesis about Syndney and say, there was that baseline, that habituation, right, of going through the motions that I think it just fell off, and just having your mind come back into that moment and being present and saying, okay, and now I'm going to walk 4 more steps this way, and I'm going to smile big, and then I'm going to signal my horse to do. I mean, obviously, I've never shown a horse. I don't even ride horses, so. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think there's that presence of mind, that checking in on your behavior, on what's next. Be careful of the habitual, and understand that there is the potential for you to just slip into a pattern and start drifting off, right? Because your brain can go into autopilot, right? I mean, she's just counting on things just to move right along in this horse show, because she has this habit, she has this routine, and she hasn't changed it up, and our brains are notorious for wanting to take shortcuts.
Yes. Yeah.
So what if the failure really was her brain going, okay, I'm going to take a shortcut because you're not paying attention here. I'm going to go ahead and just get us done with this.
Yeah. And we're done.
And we're going to look up and smile. Oh, crumb.
Oops. All right, so maybe the failure was not paying attention.
Falling prey to losing, inattention.
Yeah. So how do we stay in attention? How do we maintain it?
So if we're giving a suggestion to athletes here, it's that changing it up. For me, it's taking a different trail, or, remembering that even though you're on a familiar trail, the trail is different every day. Yeah. And I think it's that.
Make those curveballs a little bit more intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, so intentional curveballs. And that, I guess the thing that's bothering me in Syndney's case is that some athletes have to have the very same, they don't want a curveball in the middle of their performance.
No.
Right? You have to have the same performance, and you have to have practiced, and Simone is counting on Syndney to do the same thing. There, I think it's just sort of that remembering to be present.
Okay. But remember to be present, sustaining attention, and how do we pay attention? Like, what is it that we can, what are the things that we can do? And one of the things that they recommend if we want to, like, is like with mindfulness is, you know, sensorily, just take a second and pay attention to a new sound.
Yeah.
Or a new sight, you know, that's mindfulness. It's not a meditative, it's contemplative, where you just take those moments as far as, you know, sustaining attention and notice things that are moving and the things that are changing in the environment that might typically go unnoticed. That might be one way to sustain that attention.
Right.
And that presence.
Right. To be super in to all of the signals, all of the feedback that she's getting from the horse, from their surrounding, from her own body.
Yeah.
Right? To just, instead of going into some kind of contemplation, that you're really tuning in.
Yeah.
That might be better.
Syndney is actually an amazing horse person.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
That she gets to do that.
Super cool.
And do we know where the world competitions are?
No, I don't know. All I know is that she travels every weekend, it seems like, for some horse thing or another.
Okay, well, good luck, Syndney.
I know.
We'll be cheering for you.
She deserves it.